Hi, folks, and welcome to their Sunday Morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
That's terrible, right?
You gotta warn a man when you're gonna do that.
Do you miss the days of an old vampire showing up on TV and trying to do that laugh?
No.
And you knew it was just like now. If you go back and watch a recorded show from the '80s with some guy in like pasty white makeup and bloody teeth and everything, you're like, this is an actor on his last desperate gasp.
Unless you're looking at Elvira
for booze money.
Yeah.
Like,
but mine was Rhonda Up All Night. What's her name from USA?
Rhonda Up All Night. Okay,
what was her name? What was her name?
Benjamin grew up in Calhoun with 3 channels.
Oh,
I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Oh man, yeah, you watched her, and not because she was in. No, you would watch her and her. She did the crappy movies. I can't think of her last name right now. We've mentioned her on this podcast years ago when I was on with CJ and Mikey. But she's Rhonda Up All Night.
Oh,
and you watched it.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah,
but I don't.
You watched her because.
Because it was Rhonda.
Because it was Rhonda.
Oh, I see.
And Rhonda was, she wasn't the prettiest gal upstairs, but
she was.
You didn't have to go down many flights.
Oh, goodness gracious alive!
Anyway,
if you could see the motion on the podcast of the picking up the Kermit tea mug. You don't have to go down many flights.
If you knew what you mean. God. I'm doing the Burgess Meredith penguin.
So one of my favorite. All right, Burgess. One of my favorite things about the Halloween. That is the Halloween of the 80s is the cheesy makeup on the actors. As an adult, I laugh at and appreciate now. Especially, remember, the TVs are they're HD now.
Yeah.
Like, we've got 1080p, we've got 4K, we've got 720p at a minimum. And back then, we were dealing with, like, what did we play Halo in? 4-player split screen.
We were talking about this the other day.
Yeah.
Like a quarter of my big screen right now.
Right.
A quarter is what we used to play.
A fraction of a fraction.
And we played a quarter of a quarter. It was split into 4 screens.
And we would do it all night long.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And 32-inch was a...
Stop looking at my screen.
I can't help it.
Yeah. And I guess people are Halloweening it tonight.
Are they?
Sunday is the 31st, so I guess they would Halloween it Saturday. Now that I think about it.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, man, lock your doors week. I lock my doors, turn off my lights. I want to share candy with the kids. But anyway, we wanted to talk about back when we
share the candy.
I don't want to share the candy.
Is that why adults turn the light off?
I do, but it used to be a way. I used to be back in the day. I was not so bitter, and we're going to talk about Halloween things we missed from our childhood. I guess we didn't really know how to top, and it's not a top 5. It's just 5 things.
It's just 5 things, and we covered some of this last year when Kim was here.
We covered memories,
top 5 memories.
But now it's just things.
We did do a top 5
things from Halloween. Yeah, this is not just memories, but just things from Halloween, and it's kind of generic. I gave you one example. Last week before we did this podcast.
Remind me.
And it was one of them. Well, I'll mention.
Is it on your top?
It is
list?
Because I had to mention one.
Okay, sure.
Because I had 5. You had an honorable mention. Go ahead with. There's going to be 0 crossover. I don't think. I'd be shocked. Are you going to say 1? All you have to say is 1, and you'll beat me.
You know what? I'm going to say 1.
Okay,
I think that there is a possibility that we could have a crossover here, which is pretty wild.
Okay.
Astronomically odd spot.
Go with your honorable mention.
The honorable mention is only an honorable mention because I think we talked about it last year.
Okay.
And it's the Edge of Madness in Calhoun, the haunted house that doesn't happen anymore. And it's not exactly childhood memory because it's more of a teenage memory. And it was only around for about, 5, 6?
Yeah.
Not a 10-year run. I don't think they had a 10-year run. Because it was the haunted house in Calhoun, Louisiana that got too big for its britches.
If you could do it, hold on. Let me think about this. I could probably do a top 5 haunted house experiences.
Haunted house experiences?
Haunted house experiences.
How many of them would take place at the Edge of Madness? At least 2.
1, 2.
I know one of the
3
missuses would be there.
4.
4 of them would be at the Edge of Madness.
4 of the 5?
My word. I remember, Heather and you,
as a Halloween party.
What was the costume that you had on?
I had an angel and she was a devil.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
That was fun. That was a fun Halloween party. That wasn't a haunted mansion, but yeah, I think most of them would be from that.
Next Halloween,
let's do that.
We need to do top 5 haunted house.
Awesome
memories.
Look at us planning 52 weeks ahead. Watch us forget.
So many guys ignore the laugh, and that's just about standards.
Hey, you know what? That's what Dr. Horrible taught me.
This is why we're friends. It's because you caught that right away.
Bad horse has a mean whinny.
Bad horse.
He's bad.
So yes,
so
that Edge of Madness,
or you could be his mayor.
Yeah, you could be his mayor. Yeah.
Oh, it's Hi-Ho Silver. I'm a horse. God, I love it. Okay, so honorable mention was Edge of Madness, which is good. Curtail it though, because I do want to save some story. Don't tell any stories. Just tell about the experience.
No, just the experience of it. Being in Calhoun, and it was kind of it is kind of the only game in town still. There's only really one haunted house or a couple that spring up, but only one consistently in the area every year. Like right now, it's the one in Monroe.
Dark Illusions or something.
Yes, Haunted Visions, I believe.
Haunted Visions,
yes.
whatever.
And, I mean, it's fine.
I've never been.
It's fine. Like, I have nothing against it.
I'd take Megan, but she'd have the babies right then and there.
Well, Edge of Madness was unique in the way that it
I agree.
It really amped it up in every way.
And all the actors were into it.
They were into it.
No one was half arsenic.
They did at the very end. I remember there was one night, and I will go ahead and say this memory just because it fits. But this one guy at the very end of the very last house at the very last day we went through, and he was so tired. You could tell. Yeah. And he had a glowing sword of some kind, and he kind of half-ass popped out, and he was like the very end, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Just like made some awful Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference, and we all died laughing.
Oh my goodness.
And it was fantastic, but that was probably the only moment of any actor in that place that didn't give it 100%. Like, they were all over you, and it was fantastic, and they got sued a lot, and lots of good things happened, and lots of bad things happened, I'm sure. And we'll talk about that next time on Saturday morning Halloween.
Oh,
and go from there.
Faked you out. Okay,
so Edge of Madness is my honorable haunted mention.
So number 5, again, these aren't in any order, but number 5, candy apples. I miss there used
candied apples.
Candied apples.
Does no one are there not an occasion to make those anymore?
Well, it used to be a Halloween thing.
Yes, was it only a Halloween thing?
Well, I mean, it could have been other time thing, but I remember getting. Do you remember? There's
I
always
remember
someone
getting
who would
them.
someone would always give you a candied apple.
Yeah.
But the thing was, it was good.
Yeah,
I love the
candied apples. But they were wrapped
apples.
in plastic.
They're wrapped in
plastic. You take the plastic off so it didn't stick
you
to the rest of your candy.
You had to eat that one first, because apples go bad. But the thing was, it was always good. I always enjoyed the candied apple.
It was because it's a giant Jolly Rancher.
Yes.
I mean, what is not to like?
I don't know.
You eat the Jolly Rancher at the least.
People don't make those anymore.
Is it?
Or if they do, not that I've seen.
Is it because of the urban myths, or is it because of the razors?
I just watched the Chucky series. I'm watching the Chucky series.
Is that where it's coming from?
No, but they put that myth in there because in 1968 he pulls out an apple and he sees a razor blade sticking out of it. And I'm like, that never happened ever. That's an urban myth. But because Hollywood can insist that it used to happen back in the day. But the thing is, though, back then, these were you knew who your neighbors were, and it was always like Mrs. Jackson or Mrs. Reeves or Mrs. Stewart who would make candied apples for everyone, and you knew you were going to get a candied apple for them, and you were happy for the candied apple.
And on every other day of the year, she smelled weird. But on that night, she smelled like Jolly Rancher.
But the thing was, those were great. You wanted a candy apple.
You know what?
It made
You're
your bag feel heavy.
And there, oddly, there were never too many candied apples. It was always like the one lady.
It was usually just one.
Yeah, maybe they met every year as a quorum and said,
decide who was going to do it.
Okay, who's going to give out the candied apples this year?
That takes a lot of work, though.
Oh yeah, bro.
That takes a lot. Them buying a bag of candy, getting the apples, dipping them.
I think we may have just touched upon why they don't do it anymore. Because it's too much work.
I mean, still, but surely, but maybe so.
Don't call me Shirley.
But, hey. Candied apples.
Yeah, candied apples is a good one.
I know.
My number 5 in no particular order is telling ghost stories in the dark around this time of year.
Oh, that's fun.
And especially scary stories to tell in the dark. The book series that got made into a TV series, I think, or a movie. And I didn't really watch it, and it was kind of grotesque, I believe, if I recall. But I just remember I had the book, and it was a children's book. And I liked sitting around at night while my parents were playing bridge in the other room with their best friends or whatever, and we would turn off the lights around this time of year and tell those spooky stories to one another. And there were parts of it where it would say in parentheses, now, at this point, take a bowl of peeled grapes and show it to your friends and tell them this. You know, like it would help you set it up so that when you cook the spaghetti and so you put your eyeballs and the brains and all that stuff, like it would give you tips on how to do that and how to tell it so that you didn't ruin the joke. Like it taught you good storytelling. And helped you understand the experience and everything else. So it would tell you when to stop. Like, don't tell them this, but tell them this, you know. And so it's leading on an 8-year-old on how to tell a good ghost story. Yeah. And I thought it was fantastic. I missed that.
No.
So last August, I believe, we had a hurricane in the area and lost power for several days. And I spent some of that time reading that book to my 10-year-old nephew. And to my sister, who I grew up telling these stories with. We found the book.
You did? You had?
No, not the same one. But
something similar.
We found it. Yeah, we found the same
awesome.
one.
And we
did it with him. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. On a Saturday
morning.
Ghost stories.
August.
So that's really
the only
cool.
difference was that it was 110 degrees in the shade. Well, you know, when we were doing that. But
still, thought that counts.
It was great.
You reminded me, one of my favorite stories at the library I used to get was the story of the Scallywag, the Imp, and the Goblin.
Scallywag, the Imp, and the Goblin.
And they're all telling a story about a scary little boy.
Ooh,
that captured them, where they ran
away.
Were
afraid of him.
They were afraid of him.
Clever.
And the thing is, I found that book on eBay, the library copy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Did
I have it, and I need to read that to the girls.
That's fantastic.
Later on today.
I love it.
So anyway, that was a good one. My number 4 is glow in the dark vampire teeth.
I had forgotten all about that.
I know. But you always had them. You go. What's what?
Yeah.
What? And because you couldn't really talk, because you
couldn't say anything.
And you were so happy when you got them, and you just chomp, 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 and then hey mom,
guess what?
And they fall out of your face. And they pop out because they were just on a illustrator. But then you look at yourself in the mirror,
in the dark,
and you slowly move your mouth up and down, up and down, and then you turn off the lights, go. And then you do it again
the wolf man
with your face on. Then lights off. Because you wanted to see those teeth, man. You weren't even proud of those teeth, but then you go around, go to one of your friends, and go, hey, and you go, hey. And like just so she can have your mouth open.
Stay in the dark just long enough so the glow started to fade, and you turn the lights back on for 10 minutes, hold it up to the bulbs.
So it could be a really good glow. Yeah. And then turn off the lights and chase around your little brothers.
I feel like those are
fun.
Weren't those included in Count Chocula cereal for a little while?
I'm sure they were.
They must have been.
I'm sure some kind of cereal probably did it too, but they were a dime a dozen.
I feel like I had a dozen of them.
Oh, you always got some in some.
Or you got them at school.
Halloween bag, Halloween treat bag. There was a.
Do they do that anymore?
No.
Do they give anybody any kind of bag?
No.
For Halloween?
No.
Because
they don't give happiness out at school anymore.
You're right. There's too many. I guess religious restrictions or peanut allergies or something.
Either way, though. That was a fun memory.
That was.
Those are things you don't see.
No,
now, I mean,
you don't.
You can. I'm sure they still make them.
I'm sure you could
can get them,
but they were everywhere.
Everyone had one.
Everyone had them, and several copies.
And it was always. Guess what? What? And you open up your mouth. That was it. I'm glad you remembered that.
Yeah,
that made me happy.
That's a good one.
What's number 4?
Same time of year, I had a spooky sleepover of some kind, whether or not it was family or friends. Typically, we would have somebody over and we would watch some kind of spooky movie or something like that. Or,
that's tradition.
But traditionally, just having people over just for the specific purpose of telling a ghost story or watching movies or something like that. And this is pre-Netflix we're talking. So it was a deliberate trip to Blockbuster that you had to make or something like that.
Now, if you think about it, last year we had you and Kim over watching Halloween.
You're right, and we
Except for Halloween 3, which I had to watch all by myself because everyone boycotted it.
What? You didn't
I had to watch
Halloween
all by myself.
Why did you watch Halloween 3 by yourself?
Because it was the year of the witch, and y'all didn't want to watch that. Y'all just wanted to watch the Michael Myers.
Yeah. Is that...
Halloween 3 is Year of the Witch.
Okay.
I think this is the one that was written.
But
another one that was written by what's his name? The original director.
I mean,
oh my
for
gosh!
crying out loud! How do we space it on this right now?
John Carpenter.
Thank you. Good.
I think it was written by John Carpenter and directed by his wife or girlfriend or something.
Really?
I can't remember. I could be totally off on this, but I know he had more involvement in 3 than he did anything else because he didn't want to do. They said, okay, now if you're done with Michael Myers, we can do this. Halloween will now be Tales of Halloween.
Tales of Halloween, right.
And then they said, no, that didn't do good. Let's go back to Michael Myers.
I remember now. And I was just following Megan's lead on that kind of stuff because
glad you did. Okay, my number 3 is the one I told you about earlier as an example last week. Trick or Treat at the Mall. I
feel like I don't know if I ever really did that. Like I remember it happening.
They did that Boo at the Zoo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they did Trick or Treat at the mall.
They still do Boo at the Zoo.
I'm sure they do. But at the mall, all of us had buckets of candy. This
now you say all of us. College. Do you mean kids or you? This is when you worked there.
This is when I worked there. I was in college and I was working there. We all had buckets of candy.
We all worked at the mall during college at some point.
And we all gave out to trick-or-treaters. And that was my job Halloween night, was to sit out there with a bucket of candy and keep... And we were a store that sold candy, too. So
and first of all, how great is that you got to sit there and say, I'm getting paid right now.
To service trick-or-treaters.
Hand out candy.
And that's what we did. And then we get more candy and then hand it out. And we had a fun time.
So a bit of it was a sales pitch, though. Hey, we sell this inside.
Well, we did. We got a permission from the store to give X amount of candy away that day, and it was almost like free samples, so you could see what we had.
That's cool.
And so, but it was tons of fun. That was back in my early mall days. I'm sure they don't do that anymore. But the thing is, though, I remember every store was involved. Yeah. Every store gave out candy. And that's just a memory of mine.
What was the best part of giving out the candy
I don't know. It was just fun because people liked the mall because it was safe, it was lit, it was
a different experience in the 80s and 90s.
Because Halloween can sometimes be nice weather, but it can be cold. That can be the first night it gets cold.
You're right.
Here in Louisiana,
which has always been surprising to me that we live in the South and a gigantic portion of this country is very cold at Halloween. So you get all these costumes made up and then you cover it with a coat.
Yeah. But Halloween night, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes it can be that's the first cold night.
It can be very, very cold.
It can be very, very cold because I've seen many a Halloween party ruined outside, a festival ruined because it's so freaking cold.
I feel like it was ruined a couple of times by the heat too. But
maybe so.
That's typical here.
But the thing is, though, in the mall it was air conditioned.
That's
a
good point.
And it was
I doubt that they do that anymore.
A lot of people did that, and they didn't, and that brings tons of people in, but. They just decided one year to stop. So
I wonder.
But I remember that. But that was way early back in the day because I don't think we did that when I worked at Cards, Coins, and Collectibles, which is just a few years later. So they stopped that in the late '90s. I want to say it
had a good run.
I could be totally. Oh no, I say that, and we had to have participated because I remember Shane at county seat. I remember a story about him and the trick or treat mall thing. He got in trouble. He was hitting on the moms.
He was hitting on the moms. So you think it's Shane's fault that we don't have Trick or Boo at the mall anymore?
Dude, I love that dude. I can't remember his last name, but if I ever see him again, I'd hug him. He was just a crazy Cajun guy. He was funny. But anyway, though, they may have had it in the 2000s, but somewhere along the way it just disappeared.
Interesting.
All right, what's number 3 for you?
Potential crossover here is the video rental stores having the Halloween rental specials. And things like that.
No, but I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm saying,
yes.
right? Okay, because when we're talking the 80s and 90s, and VHS rentals were...
You're talking Video Giant, Movie Gallery.
Yes!
You're talking that, not Blockbuster. You're talking about
Blockbuster
all the other...
Right.
Yeah,
the ones who eventually got eaten by
smaller,
Blockbuster.
Yes, the ones that got eaten by Blockbuster.
Correct. Yeah. Those...
no, I know what you mean.
Because it was a big deal to rent a movie, first of all, but also at Halloween, it always seemed that there was some huge event and sale.
If they had anything, they had a slew of B horror movies.
If they had anything at all, that's exactly where I was going to go.
Always had 2 aisles of that.
Always 2 aisles of trash.
Yep.
And you had like half an aisle sometimes
the Ice Cream Man
of the new. Ice Cream Man Part 2.
Yeah.
Ice Cream Man Part 3.
Pumpkinhead.
Pumpkinhead Part 1 through 12.
I've seen some of these back in the day. But yeah. No, I know what you mean.
So the video rentals having the specials and the deals, and it was like they would have big displays made. And then eventually, Blockbuster kind of did the same thing. Like you remember, you told me not too long ago about how you had to have the 5th movie and you had to fill up that 5 for 5 or whatever deal or something like that. They would always do something similar to that with Halloween.
On Halloween, they would.
Least,
You're right.
And so you could get Pumpkinhead 1 through 12, but then they were always missing Part 8 because Chuck never returned it last year. And so you had to go hunt down Chuck, first of all, kill him, take his episode of Halloween 8, and then go watch the series.
On Saturday
morning.
Be horror
Maybe
movie.
that's why they don't do that anymore, because people got murdered because they had their copy of Halloween 8, and people were so angry that they couldn't complete it.
Halloween 8. It'd be something like Pumpkinhead 3
Pumpkinhead 3.
It wasn't anything big, or like
It's
you said,
like,
Ice Cream Man 2. Or
Did you
something.
see that the Mel Brooks is remaking, or he's making History of the World Part 2?
I did.
It's a TV show, and that he got the biggest cackle for years and years out of making the History of the World Part 1 and knowing full well that there was never going to be a Part 2.
He should never make a part 2.
I agree. I'm kind of sad about
How much money
it.
did they back up?
He said he cackled year after year about the thought of people going into the video stores and asking, "Where's Part 2? Where's Part 2? I want to see more of this."
That's funny.
Anyway, but yeah,
that's funny. That's a good one.
But I never remembered seeing a full completed set of those bad B movies either. It was always like Halloween 1 through 6 without Part 2.
Well, you'd find one missing. Sometimes one was always rented out or it was lost.
I don't remember if Kim and I talked about this last year, but that's what we did one Halloween when I was talking about having the sleepovers or whatever. Even if it wasn't with my friends, but my cousins, my first cousins who I was close with, like Brad and his brother Dusty and so forth. We got all 6. I think 6 of the Howling movies. Do you remember those? The Howling.
I watched all those back in the day.
They were horrible.
Except for the first one.
Not meant for children.
Did you ever see the last one?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
We were terrified.
A little town somewhere in the West. I want to say West Texas, or it could have been Arizona or Nevada. They bought the rights.
What?
And the town put on one final movie of the original series. They loved.
We did talk about that.
Town loved the Howling movies.
They loved it that they did the last one.
The mayor was the star, and everyone else, they were not actors. None of them were actors, but the whole town got to star in the movie because they bought the rights.
Such a good story.
What they did is they tried to string continuity through all the Howlings.
My word.
It was really bad, but they tried to get continuity through there.
Look.
And then at the end,
tried.
it's the whole town sitting around for a little jamboree while the credits are rolling.
That's brilliant.
Look what we did.
That is brilliant.
And it's horrible, but the story behind it is touching.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I think I would be proud of that, even if it was horrible.
I would. I wasn't howling mad when I saw it.
Oh, let's move on to your next one.
my number 2 is one that it was the first one I thought of, actually. But if I was ranking these, I guess it'd be number 2. I don't know. McDonald's Halloween buckets.
McDonald's Halloween buckets.
The Happy Meal buckets. Yeah. That was the one time of the year the Happy Meal came in. It used to be 3 pumpkins, by the way. It wasn't a witch, a ghost, and a pumpkin.
No, it was 3 pumpkins.
3 pumpkins. One with a boo ghost face, one with a mean face, and one with a happy face.
I remember that.
And we always wanted the happy face or the scary face.
Why not the mean face?
We didn't want the boo face.
The boo face.
No, the boo face we didn't want. It didn't seem
the boo box.
But we wanted but either of those though, that was the time to get your Happy Meal from McDonald's because they came in those little buckets.
Oh my word!
Then you could take out trick or treating.
I had completely forgotten about the fast food.
The Halloween buckets, man.
And McDonald's they probably started it, didn't they?
Yes.
But I remember Burger King did it.
Yes.
McDonald's did it. I think
Everyone
Sonic did it for a little while.
Everyone did it for a while.
How do they not do anything like that anymore? Because they would full on encourage, like, here,
that was so much fun.
Come here,
doesn't McDonald's do the pumpkin, the witch, and the ghost now?
I don't know.
I mean, I remember when they changed that.
I might have to go to McDonald's after we leave here tonight.
That's no fun. I mean, if I was a kid, I'd want either the ghost or the pumpkin. I wouldn't want the witch.
I am going to go to McDonald's as soon as we're done recording this and find out.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
but I do remember that because because it was like before you can go trick or treating, you have to have your bucket. Come to McDonald's.
The Happy Meal was special because it wasn't a cardboard box.
No, it was something cool. It was something you could keep, like it was a memento.
And you wanted to fill that thing with candy.
Yeah. But it was too small. I do remember that.
Well, it was small. But the thing is, though, you could just imagine buckets.
Like a lot of people use the pillowcase to collect candy in when they trick or treated. I never used a pillowcase.
You need to have a bucket. Go traditional.
I mean, I think I want to say I always had a really big bucket.
That's fine.
Is that what you did? I mean, I know that you didn't go trick or treating until much later. But when you hit up Disney World, you went around with
a shopping bag.
You had a gigantic
but the
shopping
thing
bag.
Is, though, the lady
she told you could.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I remember the permission you got from this witch.
Yeah,
and it was a good time.
So, what is number
2 is trick or treating for hours unattended, and it felt like everyone participated and decorated.
That's fun.
Now it feels much more sparse.
It depends on where you go.
I can believe that.
Because there are I've seen some neighborhoods that every other house is
They got to keep up with the Joneses.
Like they've really done themselves good. But then it depends on what neighborhood you were into. I agree with that. The sprucing up for Halloween is not as big as it used to be.
Well, I remember the first part of this, number 2, is trick-or-treating for hours unattended, because not when I was little. Like, I always remembered my mom being in the background whenever I was little trick-or-treating, too.
Right.
But then when you get old enough to go out on your own, and you know how we used to ride our bicycles just for hours without a helmet, oh my gosh, and just, go off on our own, and it was fine. Just come home by dark or by 9 o'clock or whatever, and it was all good, no big deal.
Yeah.
I remembered in that age of, I don't know how old I was to go trick-or-treating unattended. I don't know what age they would allow that. They don't now, really, I don't think. But
right.
But I feel like I just did it for years. I just was like, oh, time to go trick-or-treating.
Exactly.
I got my sheet thrown over my head and, painted something on it, and I'm good. So, I got this S on my chest. I'm Superman now.
Now I'm ready to go.
I'm ready. And then I would come back hours later, punch bowl full of candy. Eat the whole thing in one night.
You reminded me, I'm going to make this an honorable mention.
Oh?
Do you remember when people at the I'm trying to think, at stores would dress up?
Yeah.
Your retailers
would
dress up.
Yeah, the retailers, like at the mall.
Everyone
Did
would
you
be
not
dressed
dress up when you were at the mall giving out candy? Were you in costume? You must have been.
Not the store
not a
I'm thinking about. And I can't remember. I'm sure we did.
I feel like you must
Cards,
have.
Coins, and Collectibles. I'm sure we did.
I could see you like with a Chewbacca bandolier around your chest.
But the thing is, I wasn't comfortable in a Halloween costume and working because they don't have pockets or anything.
Yeah.
So I probably didn't. But I remember a lot of people did. Like the people at the video store. They were always dressed up.
They were always makeup and
yes.
like green faced and everything
and having a ball. They were having a mini party while you were looking for movies.
Yeah, they were probably drunk.
You remind me, but they probably were.
Wow.
Smoking the doobies. As the kids say.
Wow, as the kids say.
All right, so my numero uno.
Yes.
Plastic mask. The old school.
Really? That's what you meant?
Remember the if you breathe.
Do I remember? But
you could be Batman.
Yes.
You could be
whoever. I was Superman. Are you kidding me? All
you had to do is have that plastic little mask with
Dracula.
a little thin rubber band around that would snap off on day 2.
It got tighter and tighter every day.
My mom would staple it.
Yeah. So by the end of the night,
the plastic would tear around it eventually.
Remember, you're breathing. You're trying to you're
inhaling
so much carbon dioxide.
I tried to keep it. You couldn't wear it for too long because you'd be sweaty all around your mouth.
Sweat.
But the thing is that because it was really hot.
While you had it on, you were Batman.
But I tried to keep that thing as pristine as I could for the longest as I could.
Wait a minute.
Because I love those little masks.
So, you said day 2 the rubber band would snap. Like
usually.
How many days a year did you dress up as Batman?
Well, no. You got the mask, but then eventually it's going to, flimsy little rubber band is going to snap. Because my mom would always staple it.
So did you get it from Toys R Us, or did you get it out of...
No, my grandmother would bring them every year. She'd get us plastic masks of some superhero or character, well, werewolf one time.
Werewolf, I remember that.
And we have the little werewolf mask, and it was like you were super cool because you were that person because you had the mask.
Yeah.
And to me, that was
really
one
thing
cool.
to have the outfit, but to have the mask and hide your face entirely and your identity, your secret identity.
I know.
Which is something that I thought was interesting. I recently rewatched Iron Man, and I was reading the trivia for it, the Robert Downey first one that was still so good. Like that first Iron Man is a magnificent.
I agree.
They made the decision during that movie, and apparently Robert Downey improvised the I am Iron Man at the end of the press conference because he wanted to just forget about the whole crap with the secret identity thing, and that Kevin Feige went along with it, and he says, you know what, let's do that. And to this day, after all this MCU stuff later, Spider-Man and
I had a Spider-Man one too.
Yeah, you had Spider-Man. It's like Spider-Man and one other person, I think, are the only ones who even bother with the secret identity in the movies, in any of the movies that we've seen.
And when you teamed up that Spider-Man mask with your Spider-Man PJs,
you were the Spider-Man.
You were Spider-Man.
You could have crawled on the ceiling.
You could have fooled Stan Lee himself.
And he would have never known the difference.
He wouldn't have.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I remember I have a picture somewhere still of me in a Dracula outfit, full on makeup and the mask. And I had both. I had the glow in the dark teeth, I bet too, at the same time.
Guess what?
You just combine all of your stuff and then to awesome. One superhuman night.
All right, so what is number one?
Number one is the TV Halloween specials that felt so unique at Halloween.
Oh, I remember those.
So you've got the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, right? But
ABC in the mid-morning that Saturday would put on some.
Oh.
It'd be like the Ghost of Whatever or the.
Yeah.
They had something.
But it was just like what we were talking about. Everybody participated.
Yeah.
Like you were saying at the mall, every store had to do a trick-or-treating thing because everyone else was kind of doing it.
That's true.
And it felt like on TV. And it was the case, because what's beautiful is I've talked about many times on this podcast how I rewatch Star Trek a lot.
Yeah.
And I can always tell when, because there's no preamble on Netflix, but I can always tell when the Halloween-ish, October-ish sort of episode comes up, because it's kind of spooky.
Right.
It's darker. It's got kind of a spooky vibe. It's usually a little like a gag, like sort of Chuck, wink at the camera.
Exactly.
Here's our Halloween
Ghosts
episode.
don't exist.
Ghosts don't exist, but
do they?
But in the Delta Quadrant, Captain Janeway discovers this. Like whatever. Like even because Voyager was the 90s, and you could see it. You could see the wink, and TNG. You could see the wink and the nod.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't exactly
Same
Halloween.
thing for Christmas about Santa.
Exactly. Every TV
There's
show.
No Santa.
And what I mean is like even the big shows like Family Ties and The Cosby Show and
I know exactly
every big
what
show.
You're talking about. Always had
X-Files had a Halloween episode usually. You remember? And X-Files is Halloween every week, but they still had a Halloween episode.
They had the Halloween episode.
And that
comedy had a Halloween episode.
And
had
again,
their Halloween episode.
Pre-Netflix and when you could watch anything anytime you want.
That's true.
It feels like anybody watching Star Trek for the first time now, like watching TNG or Voyager or something like that now, wouldn't probably catch the fact that this was the Halloween episode that they were using to keep up with everybody else on the network, because everybody else was doing a Halloween episode. And that kind of thing I just miss very much. And I also remember like they would take special effort to play movies like Ghostbusters or things like that had a spooky theme around the holiday, because you couldn't get it. You had to go rent it.
Especially on Halloween night.
You had to go rent it.
Parents were staying
Pine
at
Hills
home.
Video, or you had to come by and
Well, they knew a lot of people were staying at home and giving out candy that night, so you may as well play
lots
those
of
movies.
commercial
Just
revenue.
Like the original Halloween shows.
Oh yeah, exactly. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This is why Saturdays are so great.
That's right.
Especially Saturday.
Morning
Samoflange.